23 battles, 23 victories, never conquered. Read those numbers again, let them sink in. For 25 years, from 1443 to 1468, a single man led Albanian forces against the Ottoman Empire in direct combat 23 times. He won every single one. Not some of them, not most of them, all of them. The Ottoman Empire, at this point in history, is the most powerful military force on the planet. They have conquered Constantinople, the unconquerable city, the heart of the Byzantine Empire, the bastion of Christendom for over 1,000 years. They have swept through the Balkans like a scythe through wheat. They have defeated every Christian army sent against them, Hungarians, Poles, Serbs, Crusaders from across Europe. Their janissaries are the most feared infantry in the world. Their cavalry can ride down any enemy. Their siege engineers can crack any wall. Their sultans believe, with considerable evidence, that they are destined to rule the world, and they cannot defeat one Albanian warlord with a few thousand men. His name is Gjergj Kastrioti, but history knows him as Scanderbeg, a corruption of Iskander Bey, the Turkish title meaning Lord Alexander. The Ottomans gave him that name because he fought like Alexander the Great himself. They did not anticipate that he would use those skills against them. June 1444. The Battle of Torvioll. The Ottomans send 25,000 soldiers to crush the Albanian rebellion. Scanderbeg has perhaps 4,000. The Sultan's generals are confident this will be quick. Scanderbeg waits until the Ottoman army enters a narrow valley. His scouts have been watching for days. He knows exactly where the terrain favors him, exactly where the Turkish numbers become a liability rather than an asset. Then his cavalry hits them from 3 sides simultaneously, a tactic he learned from the Ottomans themselves. The Turkish formation collapses. Horses scream, men fall. The valley becomes a killing ground. 8,000 Ottoman soldiers die in a single afternoon. The survivors flee. Scanderbeg pursues them for miles. September 1446, the Battle of Ottoman. The Ottomans return with fresh forces, fresh generals, fresh confidence. This time they will not underestimate the traitor. Scanderbeg draws them into the mountains. He lets them chase him. He lets them exhaust themselves climbing terrain they don't know. Terrain where their cavalry advantage disappears, where their supply lines stretch thin, where every boulder could hide an Albanian archer. Then he attacks when they're strung out along a mountain pass. Another massacre. August 1448. The Battle of Albulena. Same result, different valley. More Ottoman dead. October 1450. The First Siege of Krujë. The Ottomans try a new approach. If they cannot defeat Scanderbeg in battle, they will starve him out. Sultan Murad II personally leads an army of 100,000 men, 100,000, to besiege Scanderbeg's capital fortress. 4 months later, Murad II retreats in disgrace. He has lost tens of thousands of men to disease, starvation, and Albanian raids. His supply lines have been cut again and again. His soldiers are deserting. His engineers cannot breach the walls. He has not taken the city. The Sultan returns to Adirna, a broken man. He dies 4 months after the failed siege. Some historians believe the humiliation killed him. This pattern repeats for a quarter century. The Ottomans send armies. Scanderbeg destroys them. They send bigger armies. He destroys those too. They send their best commanders, Hamza Pasha, Balaban Pasha, Mehmed II himself, the conqueror of Constantinople. Scanderbeg defeats them all. The Sultan who conquered the unconquerable city, who ended the Byzantine Empire, who terrified all of Christendom, cannot take a mountain fortress defended by a few thousand Albanians. The cost is staggering. Historians estimate that the Ottoman Empire lost over 100,000 soldiers in 25 years of warfare against Scanderbeg. Not against a coalition of nations, not against a crusader army backed by the Pope, against one man and his mountain warriors. This is not a rebellion. This is a humiliation, and it begins with a boy taken from his home. To understand Scanderbeg, you must first understand what made him. The year is approximately 1423. The Ottoman Empire is expanding relentlessly through the Balkans. Albania, a patchwork of feuding clans and petty lords, stands in their path. Gjergj Kastrioti is the lord of a small territory called Mat in the central Albanian highlands. He is neither the most powerful nor the wealthiest of the Albanian lords. But he is stubborn. He has resisted Ottoman rule longer than most. Now his resistance ends. The Ottoman army is too strong. The other Albanian lords have already submitted. Gjergj has no allies, no hope of victory, no choice. He surrenders. But surrender to the Ottomans is not simple. It is not enough to pay tribute and fly the Sultan's flag. The Ottomans demand guarantees. They demand hostages. Gjergj Kastrioti has 4 sons. All 4 are taken to the Ottoman court at Adirna. They will be raised as Muslims, trained as Ottoman soldiers, held as insurance for their father's loyalty. If Gjergj rebels, his sons die. Among these 4 boys is Gjergj, the youngest, perhaps 9 or 10 years old. He will not see his homeland again for 20 years. The Ottoman system of taking Christian boys is called devshirme, the gathering. It is one of the empire's most effective tools for maintaining control. The boys are converted to Islam. They are given new names. They are trained in Ottoman language, culture, religion, and warfare. The brightest are educated in palace schools and groomed for administration. The strongest are trained as janissaries, the elite infantry corps that forms the backbone of Ottoman military power. The system has 2 purposes. First, it creates a class of absolutely loyal soldiers and officials who owe everything to the Sultan and nothing to local lords or family ties. Second, it robs conquered peoples of their future leaders. The boys who might have grown up to lead rebellions instead grow up to serve the empire. It is a system of breathtaking cruelty and breathtaking effectiveness. And it works. Almost always it works. The boys forget their old names. They forget their old faiths. They forget their old families. They become Ottomans. Gjergj Kastrioti does not forget. What happens during Gjergj's years at the Ottoman court is partly mystery and partly legend. What we know is this: he excels. He is converted to Islam and given the name Iskander, Alexander. He learns Turkish, Arabic, and Persian fluently. He studies the Quran, Ottoman military history, and the tactics that have made the empire invincible. He is trained in cavalry warfare, the art of the swift raid, the feigned retreat, the devastating charge. He learns to read terrain, to exploit weaknesses, to turn an enemy's strength against him. By his early 20s, Iskander Bey commands Ottoman cavalry in campaigns across the Balkans. He fights against Hungarians, against Serbs, against the enemies of the Sultan. He is rewarded with rank, with lands, with the Sultan's trust. His 3 brothers die during this period. The historical record is unclear whether from disease, in battle, or through other means. By the late 1430s, Gjergj is the only surviving son of Gjergj Kastrioti, and he is, to all appearances, a loyal Ottoman, but appearances deceive. Later accounts, some legendary, some possibly true, suggest that Gjergj never truly converted, that he practiced Christianity in secret, that he maintained hidden contacts with his homeland, that his service to the Ottomans was always a mask, always a long preparation for the moment when he could strike. Whether this is true or simply the mythology that grows around great men, we cannot know for certain. What we do know is that in November of 1443, everything changes. November 3rd, 1443, the Battle of Nish. The air is thick with smoke and the screams of dying men. The Ottoman army, one of the mightiest military forces ever assembled, is fighting for its life in the hills of Serbia. Across the blood-soaked field, a Hungarian-Polish crusader force is pressing hard, exploiting every Ottoman weakness with terrifying precision. The man leading the Christian charge is John Hunyadi. Hunyadi is a legend in his own time, a military genius who has studied Ottoman tactics and learned to counter them. He is fast where they expect slow. He is aggressive where they expect caution. He hits the Ottoman flanks when they expect frontal assault. And today, he is winning. The Ottoman center is buckling. Janissaries, the elite infantry, the backbone of Ottoman military power, are being cut down in waves. The cavalry wings have been scattered by Hunyadi's hussars. The Sultan's generals are screaming orders that no one can hear over the din of slaughter. This is not a battle anymore. This is a rout. Ottoman soldiers are streaming backward, abandoning positions, trampling their own wounded in the desperate rush to escape. The discipline that makes Ottoman armies invincible has shattered like glass. And in the chaos, one man sees his moment. Iskander Bey sits motionless on his war horse, watching the destruction unfold. He commands a cavalry unit of roughly 300 men, all of them Albanians, recruited from the conquered territories of his homeland. For years, they have served the Ottoman Empire loyally, fighting whoever the Sultan commands them to fight. But these men are not ordinary Ottoman soldiers. They are Albanians. And for years, in whispered conversations, in meaningful glances, in the careful silence of men who share a dangerous secret, they have been waiting for a signal, waiting for a moment when the empire's attention is elsewhere. This is that moment. Iskander Bey turns to his second-in-command. Their eyes meet. No words are necessary. The decision has already been made. Perhaps it was made years ago in the palace schools of Adirna, where a stolen boy pretended to forget his homeland. Perhaps it was made in the quiet moments between campaigns, when Scanderbeg stared at Albanian mountains and felt something stirring in his chest. Perhaps it was made the day the Ottomans took him from his father, a wound that never healed, a rage that never cooled. Whatever the moment of decision, the moment of action is now. In the confusion of retreat, no one sees them go. 300 horsemen peeling away from the main army. It registers as nothing amid the general collapse. Thousands of soldiers are fleeing in every direction. The chain of command has disintegrated. Officers are fighting for their own survival, not tracking the movements of auxiliary cavalry. Scanderbeg leads his men west, not toward the Ottoman heartland, not toward safety and regrouping, toward Albania, toward home. The ride takes days, 300 men pushing through a no-man's land of burned villages and roaming patrols. They avoid the main roads, sticking to mountain paths that Scanderbeg has somehow, despite 20 years of absence, never forgotten. They know the risks. If they are caught, they won't be treated as prisoners. They will be executed as traitors. But not one man turns back. For most of them, this is the first time they have seen Albania since they were children. They were taken young. Like Scanderbeg, many were given to the Ottomans as hostages or tribute, raised in the devshirme system, trained to forget who they were. They have spent their adult lives fighting for the Sultan, killing the Sultan's enemies, earning the Sultan's rewards. But they never forgot. In the barracks, when no officers were listening, they spoke, Albanian, to each other. They shared memories of home. Fragments, really, childhood impressions worn smooth by time. They kept their old names alive even as they answered to Turkish ones. And they dreamed of this. A moment when the empire's grip loosened, a leader willing to take the impossible risk, a chance, however slim, to go home. Now that moment has arrived. The mountains ahead are Albanian mountains. The stars overhead are Albanian stars. The air itself smells different. thinner, cleaner, carrying the scent of pine and wild thyme. Some of the men are weeping. They do not try to hide it. After days of hard riding, the fortress of Krujë comes into view. It sits atop a mountain spur, its walls rising directly from the rock, a natural stronghold that has been fought over for centuries. The Kastrioti family once ruled from here. Scanderbeg's grandfather, his father, generations of Albanian lords who bent the knee to no one. Then the Ottomans came. Now the crescent flag flies over the battlements. An Ottoman garrison mans the walls. Ottoman law governs the land below. But that is about to change. Scanderbeg has a plan. During the chaos of the Battle of Niš, in the hours of Ottoman collapse, he managed to obtain something precious, official documents bearing the Sultan's seal. Some accounts say he forged them himself, that his years in the Ottoman bureaucracy taught him exactly how to replicate the imperial signature. Other accounts say he stole them from the fleeing Ottoman commanders, blanks waiting to be filled in for various administrative purposes. What matters is this: he has documents that appear authentic, and he intends to use them. The approach to Krujë is tense. 300 cavalry riders presenting themselves at a fortress gate in the middle of the night. This is unusual, suspicious. The garrison commander, a man whose name history has not preserved, sends men to investigate. Scanderbeg rides forward alone. He identifies himself as Iskander Bey, a name the garrison commander recognizes. Everyone in the Ottoman Balkans has heard of Iskander Bey, the Albanian who fights like Alexander, the Sultan's trusted cavalry commander. He presents his documents. Letters, supposedly from Sultan Murad II himself, ordering the garrison commander to surrender control of the fortress to Iskander Bey immediately. The language is bureaucratic, technical, convincing. The seals look authentic. The signature matches what the commander has seen before. There is no reason to doubt. Except, the commander hesitates. Something feels wrong. The timing is strange. Why would the Sultan transfer command of a strategic fortress in the middle of a military crisis? And these riders look exhausted, dirty, like men who have been fleeing rather than traveling on official business. For a long moment, everything hangs in the balance. If the commander refuses, if he demands verification, if he decides to wait for confirmation from the capital, Scanderbeg's rebellion ends before it begins. 300 men against a fortified garrison is no fight at all. They will be slaughtered, and the Ottoman Empire will never know how close it came to losing Albania. The commander looks at the documents again. He looks at Iskander Bey, a famous warrior, a loyal servant of the Sultan, a man with decades of distinguished service. Why would such a man lie? The gates open. Scanderbeg rides through, his 300 men following in disciplined formation. They enter the outer courtyard, then the inner courtyard, past the barracks, where Ottoman soldiers watch with confused curiosity. No one tries to stop them. Why would they? These are fellow soldiers, officers from the army, men who serve the same Sultan. By the time anyone realizes the truth, it is too late. The mask falls. Scanderbeg rips off his Ottoman turban, the symbol of his conversion, his loyalty, his 20 years of faithful service, and throws it into the dirt. His men do the same. 300 turbans lying in the mud of Krujë's courtyard. 300 men renouncing everything the Ottoman Empire made them. The Ottoman garrison stares in disbelief. What is happening? What does this mean? And then they understand. The takeover is swift and violent. Scanderbeg's men have been waiting for this moment for years. They know exactly what to do. They seize the armory, the gatehouse, the commander's quarters. Ottoman soldiers who resist are cut down. Those who surrender are disarmed, bound, locked in the very cells where they once imprisoned Albanians. The entire operation takes less than an hour. By midnight, the fortress of Krujë, seat of the Kastrioti dynasty, strategic key to central Albania, is in Scanderbeg's hands. The Ottoman flag comes down. In its place rises a new banner, a black double-headed eagle on a red field, the Kastrioti arms, the symbol of free Albania. That night, Scanderbeg does something even more dramatic than seizing a fortress. He enters the Christian church within the castle walls, a church that has stood since before the Ottoman conquest, preserved by the conquerors as a gesture of tolerance, rarely used. And there, before witnesses, before his 300 men, before God, he renounces Islam, publicly, formally, irrevocably. He confesses that his conversion was always false, that he never truly believed, that for 20 years he maintained the pretense of faith while secretly remaining Christian in his heart. He takes communion, the body and blood of Christ, forbidden to Muslims on pain of death. He is baptized again, or has his original baptism confirmed. The sources disagree on the exact ritual, but the meaning is clear. Gjergj Kastrioti is no longer Iskander Bey. He is Scanderbeg, a new identity forged from the ashes of the old. Christian, Albanian. Free. In the morning light, the full weight of what has happened becomes clear. Scanderbeg has not merely taken a fortress. He has not merely switched sides in a war. He has declared war on the most powerful empire on earth. He has committed apostasy, the worst crime in Islamic law, punishable by death in the most painful ways the Ottoman legal system can devise. He has betrayed the Sultan, who raised him, educated him, trusted him with command of soldiers and the secrets of Ottoman military doctrine. And he has done it all in full view of witnesses, who will carry the news to Constantinople within weeks. There is no going back. There can be no negotiation, no apology, no second chance. The Ottomans will come for him. They will come with armies. They will come with fury. They will come to make an example so terrible that no one will ever dare to do what Scanderbeg has done. He knows this. He is counting on it. The news spreads like wildfire through the Albanian mountains. Scanderbeg has returned. The son of Gjergj Kastrioti, taken by the Ottomans as a child, has come home. He has seized Krujë. He has raised the old banner. He has declared Albania free. In villages that have known nothing but Ottoman rule for decades, people hear the news and do not believe it at first. It is too good to be true. It must be a rumor, a fantasy, wishful thinking from people who have dreamed of freedom for so long that they have begun to imagine it. But the messengers keep coming. The stories are consistent. And then Albanian refugees, who fled the fortress, confirm it with their own eyes. It is real, it is happening, and something in the Albanian people, something that has been dormant for a generation, begins to wake up. In the weeks that follow, fighters stream toward Krujë. They come from the mountain villages, men who have kept their weapons hidden, who have practiced swordplay in secret, who have told their sons stories of resistance and waited for a leader worth following. They come from the lowland towns, merchants and craftsmen who have chafed under Ottoman taxation, who have watched their brothers taken for the devshirme, who have calculated the odds of rebellion and found them hopeless until now. They come from other regions of Albania, lords and chieftains who have submitted to Ottoman rule because they had no choice, who now see a chance to reclaim their autonomy, who are willing to gamble everything on this one man's impossible vision. Scanderbeg welcomes them all. He does not ask about their past. He does not care whether they collaborated with the Ottomans or resisted. He needs men who can fight, men who will follow orders, men who are willing to die. The army grows. 300 becomes 3,000. 3,000 becomes 10,000, and still they come. The news reaches Sultan Murad II within weeks. The Sultan is already dealing with the aftermath of the disaster at Lezhë. An army scattered, officers dead or captured, the Hungarian crusade emboldened to push deeper into Ottoman territory. And now this. His trusted commander, his decorated officer, his loyal Muslim soldier, has revealed himself to be a traitor, a deceiver, an apostate. The humiliation is profound. Murad II has prided himself on the loyalty of his devshirme soldiers. The system works, he has always believed. You take Christian boys, you raise them as Muslims, you give them purpose and power and identity, and they become more loyal than any born Turk. Scanderbeg makes a mockery of that belief. Scanderbeg proves that 20 years of indoctrination can be undone in a single night, that a man can wear the mask of loyalty while nurturing rebellion in his heart, that the children you steal might one day come back to steal everything from you. The Sultan's advisors urge caution. The empire is overextended. The Hungarian front is unstable. Perhaps Albania can wait. Murad II overrules them. Albania cannot wait. If Scanderbeg is not crushed immediately, others will follow his example. The devshirme soldiers serving across the empire will see that rebellion is possible. The other Balkan peoples, Greeks, Serbs, Bulgarians, will see that the Ottomans can be defied. This is not just about one fortress, one man, one small mountain territory. This is about the idea of Ottoman invincibility, and that idea is worth any price to defend. In the spring of 1444, an Ottoman army marches toward Albania, 25,000 soldiers, cavalry, infantry, artillery, veteran commanders who have crushed rebellions from the Balkans to Anatolia. Their orders are simple: retake Krujë, kill the traitor Scanderbeg, make an example so terrible that no one will ever dare to imitate him. They expect the campaign to last a few weeks at most. They are wrong. Scanderbeg watches them come. He has prepared for this. He has spent months fortifying positions, training his growing army, studying the terrain where he will make his stand. The Ottomans have numbers. He has knowledge. He knows exactly how they will approach because he helped plan similar campaigns during his years of service. He knows their tactics, their formations, their vulnerabilities. He knows how they think, and he knows how to make them die. The Valley of Torvioll awaits. The first of 23 battles is about to begin. The Ottomans have a word for what Scanderbeg has become: Murtad, apostate, one who has abandoned the faith of Islam. In Islamic law, apostasy is the worst of crimes, worse than murder, worse than treason. A Murtad has not merely broken human law, he has defied God himself. The punishment is death, but first they have to catch him. And for the next 25 years, through 23 battles, through sieges and skirmishes and desperate last stands, they never will. The traitor who learned everything the Ottomans could teach him has turned their own lessons into weapons, and he is just getting started. Scanderbeg knows that taking Krujë is only the beginning. Albania is not a nation in the modern sense. It is a patchwork of feuding clans, rival lords, and ancient blood feuds. The Albanian lords have spent centuries fighting each other as often as they fight foreign invaders. If Scanderbeg cannot unite them, the Ottomans will crush them one by one. On March 2nd, 1444, he calls a council at the coastal town of Lezhë. Every major Albanian lord is invited, every clan chief, every regional power, every potential rival. The meeting is tense. These men do not trust each other. They have family members killed by other clans. They have land disputes going back generations. They have no reason to believe that unity is possible, and every reason to believe it will fail. Scanderbeg speaks. We do not have records of his exact words, but we know the effect. By the end of the council, the League of Lezhë is formed, a military alliance of Albanian lords united under Scanderbeg's command. He is named Captain General, the supreme military commander of a unified Albanian resistance. For the first time in history, Albania is something like a nation. 3 figures from this alliance deserve particular attention. Moise Arianit Golemi. He is Scanderbeg's most powerful ally and his father-in-law. Lord of vast territories in central Albania, Moise commands thousands of fighting men and brings wealth, legitimacy, and connections to the alliance. But Moise is also ambitious. He is older than Scanderbeg, more established, with his own claims to leadership. The alliance between them is sealed by marriage. Scanderbeg weds Moisi's daughter, Donica, but it is never entirely without tension. Moisi will prove loyal when it matters, but his presence is a constant reminder that Scanderbeg's authority rests on diplomacy as much as military genius. Hamza Kastrioti. He is Scanderbeg's nephew, the son of one of his dead brothers. Raised in Albania, not in Ottoman captivity, Hamza represents the family's claim to legitimacy that Scanderbeg's years as an Ottoman officer might otherwise undermine. But Hamza is also resentful. He believes he should lead the Kastrioti clan. He believes his uncle's authority is built on foreign skills and foreign connections. The tension between them simmers for years. Eventually, it will boil over. Hamza will defect to the Ottomans, providing them with intelligence about Albanian defenses and becoming one of Scanderbeg's most dangerous enemies. Blood betrays blood. This is the curse of leadership. Donica Kastrioti. She is Scanderbeg's wife, daughter of Moisi Arianit, married to seal the alliance that makes Albanian resistance possible. The sources tell us little about her as a person. We know she bears Scanderbeg a son, Gjon, named for Scanderbeg's father. We know she remains with him through 25 years of constant warfare, through sieges and retreats and narrow escapes. We can infer that she is strong. You do not survive as the wife of the most wanted man in the Ottoman Empire by being weak. After Scanderbeg's death, she will flee with her son to Italy, spending her final years in exile, watching from afar as everything her husband built is slowly conquered. The Ottoman response to Scanderbeg's rebellion is swift and overwhelming. Sultan Murad II cannot allow this defiance to stand. An apostate former officer has seized Ottoman territory, raised a Christian banner, and united Albania against the empire. If he is not crushed quickly, the example might spread. In the spring of 1444, an Ottoman army of 25,000 men marches into Albania under the command of Ali Pasha. Ali Pasha is confident. He has fought Albanians before. They are mountain bandits, brave but undisciplined, capable of raids but not real warfare. His army will sweep them aside. He does not understand what he is facing. June 29th, 1444. The Battle of Torvioll. Scanderbeg has chosen his ground with care. The valley is narrow, limiting the Ottomans' ability to use their numerical advantage. The hills are forested, providing cover for Albanian archers and infantry. The terrain favors cavalry charges from concealed positions. The Ottomans march into the valley expecting a straightforward advance to Krujë. They find hell instead. Scanderbeg has divided his forces into multiple units, hidden in the hills on both sides of the valley. When the Ottoman column is fully committed, when there is no easy retreat, he springs the trap. Albanian cavalry hits the Ottoman flank, then the rear, then the other flank. The Ottomans cannot form proper battle lines. They cannot use their artillery. They cannot coordinate a defense. The valley becomes a killing ground. 8,000 Ottoman soldiers die. Ali Pasha himself barely escapes. Scanderbeg pursues the retreating Ottomans for miles, turning retreat into rout. The victory at Torvioll stuns the Ottoman court. 25,000 soldiers defeated by 4,000. A trusted commander humiliated. An apostate rebel victorious. This cannot stand, but when the Ottomans send another army, Scanderbeg defeats it too, and another, and another. The Albanian wars fall into a pattern that will repeat for a quarter century. The Ottomans invade with overwhelming force. They march through the lowlands, burning villages and crops. They approach the mountain fortresses. And then Scanderbeg bleeds them. He does not fight pitched battles when the odds are against him. He raids supply lines. He ambushes foraging parties. He attacks at night when Ottoman numbers mean nothing. He draws the enemy into terrain where their cavalry cannot maneuver and their infantry cannot form lines. When the Ottomans besiege a fortress, he does not try to break the siege with a direct assault. He waits. He lets disease and hunger do their work. He harasses the besiegers constantly, never letting them rest, never letting them feel safe. And when the Ottoman army is exhausted, demoralized, and depleted, then he attacks. Scanderbeg's tactics are not original. They are, in fact, Ottoman tactics, the same strategies the Turks used to conquer the Balkans. Feigned retreats, ambushes, exploitation of terrain, mobility over mass. Scanderbeg learned these tactics in Ottoman service. He studied under Ottoman commanders. He fought alongside Ottoman cavalry. Now he uses their own methods against them, and the Ottomans cannot adapt. Their army is designed for conquest, for overwhelming force applied against fixed positions. It is not designed for counterinsurgency in hostile mountains against an enemy who knows the terrain perfectly and refuses to stand and fight. Every advantage the Ottomans have in open battle becomes a disadvantage in the Albanian highlands. If you appreciate stories like this, stories that reveal the brutal realities of history, the genius and the suffering, the impossible odds and the human cost, consider subscribing to Not Nostalgic History. This channel exists because real history is more compelling than any fiction, because men like Scanderbeg deserve to be remembered not as legends but as humans, brilliant, flawed, extraordinary humans who shaped the world. If you've made it this far, you understand why these stories matter. Subscribe now, share this video, and stay with me, because the 25 years of war are far from over. October 1450, the first Siege of Krujë. Sultan Murad II has had enough. 6 years of failed campaigns, 6 years of dead soldiers and humiliated generals, 6 years of an apostate mocking the power of the Ottoman throne. Murad has tried to delegate this problem. He has sent commander after commander. All have failed. Now he comes himself. 100,000 soldiers, the largest army ever sent against Albania. Artillery capable of breaching any wall in Europe, the Sultan's personal guard, the cream of Ottoman military power. Against this force, Scanderbeg has perhaps 15,000 men, and a fortress that has never been tested against modern siege weapons. The mathematics suggest annihilation. Krujë sits atop a mountain spur, with sheer cliffs on 3 sides. The only approach is a narrow ridge that an army must climb single file. The walls are thick, the cisterns are full, and the garrison is determined. But it is small. Perhaps 1,500 defenders can fit inside the fortress itself. Scanderbeg cannot stay inside the walls. He must fight from the outside, raiding, harassing, cutting supply lines. While a skeleton garrison holds the fortress, it is an impossible balance. One mistake, and the siege succeeds. The siege lasts 4 months. 4 months of bombardment. 4 months of assaults repulsed. 4 months of Scanderbeg's raiders striking Ottoman supply convoys and disappearing into the mountains. The Ottomans die by the thousands, not in glorious battle, but in the misery of siege warfare. Disease spreads through the cramped camp, dysentery, fever. The winter brings cold that kills men in their sleep. Food grows scarce as Albanian raids disrupt supply lines. The soldiers grumble. Then they desert. Officers cannot maintain discipline, and still the walls hold. In February of 1451, Murad II orders the retreat. He has lost perhaps 20,000 men. He has not scratched the walls of Krujë. He has proven before the entire world that the Ottoman Empire cannot defeat one Albanian warlord. The Sultan returns to Adirna. 4 months later, he is dead. The official cause is apoplexy, a stroke. But those who knew him said he was never the same after Krujë. The humiliation broke something in him. He was the Sultan who conquered the Balkans, who forced emperors and kings to bow, and he could not take a mountain fortress defended by a handful of Christians. His son Mehmed II inherits the throne and the Albanian problem. Mehmed the is not his father. Where Murad was cautious, Mehmed is bold. Where Murad sought stability, Mehmed seeks glory. Where Murad calculated risks and measured costs, Mehmed burns with a fire that consumes everything in its path. He is 21 years old when he takes the throne for the second time. His first brief reign ended when his father came out of retirement to manage a crisis. This time, Murad is dead. There will be no one to restrain him. Mehmed has been preparing for this moment since childhood. He speaks 6 languages fluently. He has studied the campaigns of Alexander the Great, of Julius Caesar, of the great conquerors of history. He has memorized the Quran and debated philosophy with scholars. He has trained with weapons until his skills match any soldier in the empire, and he has one obsession above all others: Constantinople. For 1,000 years, Constantinople has defied every enemy. Arabs besieged it and failed. Bulgars besieged it and failed. Rus Vikings besieged it and failed. Even the Fourth Crusade, which temporarily captured the city in 1204, only succeeded through treachery and the city's internal weakness, and the Byzantines took it back within 60 years. The walls of Theodosius are legendary. 12 miles of triple fortification, outer wall, inner wall, and massive main wall rising 40 feet high, studded with towers every 60 yards. No army in history has breached them through direct assault. The Ottomans have tried twice before. Both times they failed. Every military strategist in Europe believes the city is impregnable. The Byzantine Empire may be a shadow of its former glory, reduced to the city itself and a few scattered territories, but as long as those walls stand, Constantinople will endure. Mehmed disagrees. The young Sultan has a secret weapon. A Hungarian engineer named Orban has come to Constantinople offering to build cannons for the Byzantine emperor. The emperor cannot afford his price. Mehmed can. Orban constructs monsters. The largest cannon, later called the Basilica, is 27 feet long and capable of firing stone balls weighing over half a ton. It takes 60 oxen and 200 men to move it. It can only fire 7 times a day because the barrel must cool between shots. But when it fires, walls crumble. Mehmed commissions dozens of these siege guns. He gathers an army of 80,000 men. Some sources say 100,000. He builds a fleet to blockade the city from the sea. And in April of 1453, he begins the siege that will change the world. For 53 days, the bombardment continues. The Byzantine defenders, perhaps 7,000 men, including Italian mercenaries and volunteers, fight with desperate courage. Emperor Constantine Palaiologos refuses all offers of surrender. He knows what Ottoman conquest means. The walls are breached. The Byzantines repair them overnight. The walls are breached again. Again, they are repaired. Mehmed grows frustrated. His advisors counsel patience. His soldiers grow restless. And then, on May 29th, 1453, everything changes. The final assault comes before dawn. Wave after wave of Ottoman soldiers crash against the walls. The defenders hold for hours, throwing back attack after attack. But they are exhausted. Their numbers are too few. The walls have too many gaps to cover. A small gate, the Kirkeporta, is left unlocked after a sortie. Ottoman soldiers discover it and pour through. The defense collapses. Emperor Constantine V, last of the Roman emperors, tears off his imperial regalia and charges into the Ottoman ranks. His body is never definitively identified. Legend says he died sword in hand, fighting to the last. Constantinople, the city of Constantine, the new Rome, the heart of Eastern Christianity for 11 centuries, falls. The slaughter lasts 3 days. Mehmed rides into the city through the shattered gates. He goes directly to the Hagia Sophia, the greatest church in Christendom, built 9 centuries earlier by the Emperor Justinian. He dismounts, bends down, and scoops up a handful of earth, which he pours over his turban as a gesture of humility before God. Then he orders the church converted into a mosque. The Byzantine Empire, which traced its lineage back to Augustus Caesar, which preserved Roman law and Greek learning through the Dark Ages, which stood as the last remnant of the classical world, is finished. Mehmed styles himself Kaiser-i-Rum, Caesar of Rome. He claims the legacy of the Caesars, the inheritance of Alexander. He believes, with considerable evidence, that he is destined to conquer the world. He is 23 years old. He is the most powerful man on earth, and he cannot defeat Scanderbeg. The news reaches Albania within weeks. Constantinople has fallen. The city that has stood for 1,000 years, the bastion that generations of Christians believed would endure until the Second Coming, is gone. The last Roman emperor is dead. The Ottomans control the crossroads of the world. For Scanderbeg and his followers, the implications are catastrophic. The Ottoman Empire is now stronger than it has ever been. The treasury overflows with Byzantine gold. The army swells with new recruits emboldened by victory. The prestige of the Sultan reaches heights that previous sultans could only dream of. And now, with Constantinople secured, with the Byzantine threat eliminated forever, the full weight of Ottoman power can turn toward the remaining pockets of resistance, toward Albania. But in every disaster, Scanderbeg sees opportunity. He understands European politics better than any other Albanian leader. He knows that the fall of Constantinople will terrify the Christian powers, that the threat they have ignored for decades can no longer be denied. If fear will not move them, nothing will. And so he writes letters. The embassies begin immediately. To Pope Nicholas V in Rome, Scanderbeg describes himself as a bulwark of Christendom, the last barrier between Ottoman hordes and the heart of Europe. He begs for money, for soldiers, for a crusade that might break Ottoman power forever. To the Doge of Venice, Scanderbeg offers alliance, mutual defense, shared intelligence about Ottoman movements. Venice controls the Adriatic trade routes that Albania's coast threatens. Surely they have common interests. To King Alfonso V of Naples, Scanderbeg appeals to Catholic solidarity, to Aragonese ambition in the Mediterranean, to the prestige that would come from supporting Christianity's champion against the infidel. To John Hunyadi in Hungary, Scanderbeg invokes their shared struggle, their common enemy, the memory of the battle at Niš, where they fought, however briefly, on opposite sides. Now they must fight together or be destroyed separately. The letters go out and the responses come back. Pope Nicholas V is sympathetic. He issues bulls praising Scanderbeg's courage. He calls for crusade, as popes have called for crusade for centuries with decreasing effect. He sends money when he can, which is not often. The papal treasury is not what it once was. What he does not send is soldiers. Venice is calculating. The Republic values its trade relationships in the Eastern Mediterranean. Open war with the Ottomans would disrupt commerce. Venice will provide weapons at a price. Venice will offer diplomatic support, when convenient. Venice will cheer Albanian victories from a safe distance. What Venice will not do is commit Venetian blood to Albanian soil. Naples is enthusiastic. King Alfonso makes grand declarations of support. He promises troops, money, supplies. He styles himself a crusader king, eager to strike at the Ottoman menace. What he delivers is excuses. The troops are delayed. The money is tied up. The supplies were diverted. Perhaps next year. Perhaps after the succession crisis is resolved. Perhaps after the harvest. Always perhaps. Never now. Hungary is fighting for its own survival. John Hunyadi, the brilliant commander who inadvertently created the chaos that allowed Scanderbeg's escape, faces Ottoman armies on his own borders. He has no soldiers to spare. He has no money to send. He can offer only sympathy and shared prayers. Scanderbeg fights alone. Oh, there is help. Occasionally. A few hundred ducats from the Pope, a shipment of arquebuses from Venice, a handful of Italian mercenaries seeking adventure and payment. But the Grand Coalition, the European Crusade, the Christian alliance that might actually challenge Ottoman power, it never materializes. The Christian powers are too divided. They fear each other as much as they fear the Ottomans. France and England are still exhausted from their 100 Years' War. The Holy Roman Empire is a patchwork of feuding principalities. Spain is consumed by its own Reconquista. Italy is a chessboard of competing city-states, none willing to sacrifice for the others. They will write letters. They will express concern. They will praise Albanian valor in flowing Latin prose. They will not fight. And so Scanderbeg wages his impossible war with the resources he has. Albanian fighters, Albanian mountains, Albanian desperation. For 13 years after Constantinople falls, he holds. 13 years of raids and ambushes, of sieges resisted and armies destroyed. 13 years of the mightiest empire on earth throwing its power against a mountain nation and losing. But Mehmed the Conqueror is patient, and in 1466 he decides that patience has run out. 1466. 23 years since Scanderbeg's rebellion began. Mehmed II is now 44 years old. He has conquered Constantinople, subdued Serbia, crushed Bosnia, pacified the Morea. His empire stretches from the Danube to the Euphrates, but Albania remains free. This small, mountainous, strategically marginal territory has defied every army he has sent. His father died having never taken Krujë. Mehmed himself has dispatched campaign after campaign, commanders after commander. All failures. It is intolerable. Not because Albania threatens the empire's survival. Not because Albanian resources are vital to Ottoman prosperity. Not because losing Albania would trigger cascading rebellions elsewhere. It is intolerable because Scanderbeg makes Mehmed look weak. Every year that passes without Albanian submission is an insult to Ottoman prestige. Every visitor to the Sultan's court knows that one man, one fortress, one miserable collection of mountain villages has defied the conqueror of Constantinople. Mehmed cannot let this stand. He will go to Albania himself. He will bring the army that shattered Constantinople's walls, the cannons that crumbled 1,000 years of fortification, the soldiers who have never known defeat under his command, and he will finish what his father could not. The army that marches on Albania in the summer of 1466 is the most powerful force Mehmed has ever assembled against a single enemy. Contemporary sources give wildly varying numbers. Some say 100,000, some say 150,000, some say even more. The truth is probably somewhere between 80 and 100,000 soldiers. But the numbers are less significant than the composition. These are not provincial levies hastily assembled for a punitive campaign. These are the elite corps of the Ottoman military, janissaries hardened by decades of warfare, Sipahi cavalry who have ridden down every enemy from Hungary to Persia, siege engineers who shattered Constantinople's legendary walls. And they bring the artillery, the great guns that Orban built for the Constantinople siege, updated, improved, deadlier than ever. Cannons capable of hurling massive stone balls that can punch through any fortification. The weapons that ended the Byzantine Empire. Now they will end Scanderbeg. Mehmed approaches Krujë with absolute confidence. He has studied the reports of his father's failed siege. He knows where Murad went wrong. Insufficient artillery, inadequate supply lines, failure to neutralize Scanderbeg's raiders. He will not repeat those mistakes. His siege camp is fortified against attack. His supply lines are protected by cavalry patrols. His guns are positioned on the heights where they can pound the walls without interference. Everything is prepared. The siege will last as long as it takes. Weeks, months. It does not matter. The fortress will fall. It must fall. The bombardment begins in August, day after day, The great guns thunder. The walls of Krujë, ancient stone built for an earlier age of warfare, begin to crack under the relentless pounding. This is different from Murad's siege. These are the guns that broke Constantinople. These are the weapons that ended empires. The walls of Krujë are not the Theodosian walls. They are not 12 miles of triple fortification. They are the defenses of a mountain castle, formidable by medieval standards, but inadequate against modern artillery. The first breach opens within weeks, then another, then another. Mehmed orders the assault. Ottoman soldiers surge through the gaps in the walls, expecting to overwhelm the defenders with numbers, to sweep through the fortress as they swept through Constantinople. They are wrong. The Albanians are waiting. Every breach is a kill zone. Every gap in the walls leads to a carefully prepared defensive position, barricades of rubble and timber, positions where a handful of defenders can hold off hundreds of attackers. The Ottomans push forward. They climb over their own dead. They fight hand to hand with knives and axes when the narrow spaces make swords useless. They die. By the dozens. By the hundreds. Wave after wave feeding into the meat grinder of Albanian resistance. But the walls are not the only battlefield. Scanderbeg himself is not inside Krujë. He cannot afford to be trapped. He commands from the mountains, leading the mobile forces that make the siege a nightmare for the Ottomans. Every night, Albanian raiders strike. They attack supply convoys, slaughtering guards and burning wagons. They ambush foraging parties, killing soldiers who venture too far from camp. They slip into the siege lines and murder sentries in their sleep. The Ottoman soldiers are exhausted. They cannot rest. They cannot relax. They cannot let down their guard for a moment. The mountains are alive with enemies who appear from nowhere and vanish like ghosts. Men desert. Men go mad. Men refuse to leave their tents after dark, huddling together in fear of attackers they cannot see. The disciplined war machine that conquered Constantinople is being ground down by attrition. The weeks become months. Summer turns to autumn. Autumn threatens to turn to winter, and a winter siege in the Albanian mountains is a death sentence. The cold kills faster than Albanian arrows. The snow closes the supply routes. Disease spreads through crowded camps where men cannot stay warm. Mehmed has not taken the fortress. His casualties are mounting. His soldiers are demoralized. His supplies are dwindling despite every effort to protect the convoys. And then, worst of all, news arrives from the east. Rebellion in Anatolia. The Karamanids, a Turkish dynasty that has never fully accepted Ottoman rule, have risen against Constantinople's authority. Other malcontents are joining them. The eastern provinces are in flames. Mehmed cannot be in two places at once. He faces an impossible choice. Stay in Albania and risk losing Anatolia, the heartland of Ottoman power, the source of the empire's best soldiers, or withdraw from Albania and admit defeat before the walls of Krujë. The conqueror of Constantinople chooses retreat. In the autumn of 1466, Mehmed II withdraws his army. Not in defeat, he tells himself, he tells his court, he tells history. A strategic redeployment to address threats in the east. The Albanian campaign will continue. The fortress will fall eventually. But everyone knows the truth. The Sultan who conquered Constantinople has failed to take Krujë. The walls still stand. The eagle still flies. Scanderbeg still lives. Mehmed leaves behind a substantial force under the command of Balaban Pasha, a veteran commander, an Albanian by birth who has served the Ottomans loyally, who knows the terrain and the people. Balaban will finish the siege. Balaban will take the fortress. Balaban will deliver Scanderbeg's head to Constantinople. That is the order. Balaban Pasha is not a fool. He understands why the siege has failed. The breached walls mean nothing if every gap becomes a death trap, if the defenders can hold indefinitely through sheer ferocity. He understands that the raiders in the mountains are as dangerous as the garrison in the fortress. He decides on a new approach. Rather than constant assault, he will starve them out. He will tighten the siege lines until nothing enters or leaves. He will wait for hunger and disease to do what artillery and infantry cannot. It is a sound strategy. It requires patience. It requires discipline. It requires the Ottomans to endure the raids and the cold and the slow attrition without breaking. Balaban believes he can manage this. He is wrong about one thing. The fortress has artillery too. Not the massive siege guns of the Ottomans. Scanderbeg has never been able to afford such weapons, but smaller cannons captured in earlier battles or purchased from Venetian merchants. Guns capable of hitting targets outside the walls. Guns capable of killing commanders. The date is not recorded precisely. Sometime in the final months of 1466 or early 1467. Balaban Pasha is inspecting the siege lines. He is moving among his troops, showing himself, demonstrating that their commander shares their hardships. An Albanian gunner takes careful aim. The cannon fires. Balaban Pasha dies instantly. The cannonball strikes him directly. Some accounts say in the chest, others say in the head. The details do not matter. What matters is that the Ottoman commander, the man Mehmed trusted to finish the siege, is dead. His body falls in full view of both armies. The Albanians do not bury him. They take his head. They mount it on a spike above the gates of Krujë. This is a message. This is what happens to those who try to take this fortress. This is what happens to those who serve the Sultan against us. Come if you dare. This is what awaits you. The Ottoman soldiers see their commander's head rotting on the walls. Morale collapses. The siege ends. Without Balaban, without clear orders from the Sultan, without any prospect of victory, the Ottoman forces withdraw. They have been fighting for nearly a year. They have lost thousands of men. They have failed. Krujë still stands. Scanderbeg still lives. The fortress that defied Murad II has now defied Mehmed II, the conqueror of Constantinople, the most powerful sultan in Ottoman history. The double-headed eagle still flies. In Constantinople, Mehmed receives the news. Balaban is dead. The siege is abandoned. Krujë remains in Albanian hands. For a long moment, the conqueror of Constantinople says nothing. He has never failed like this. He has never been defied so completely, so persistently, so humiliatingly. One man, one fortress, 23 years. Mehmed swears that he will return. He swears that Albania will fall. He swears that Scanderbeg will die in Ottoman chains. But he never gets the chance. Scanderbeg will die of fever in 1468, undefeated, unconquered, free. And Mehmed will spend the rest of his reign trying to forget the mountain fortress that broke his legend of invincibility. The conqueror of Constantinople met his match in the mountains of Albania, and history never lets him forget it. But victory has a price. After 25 years of constant warfare, Albania is exhausted. The population has been devastated. Thousands have died in battle, thousands more from disease and famine. Entire villages have been burned and never rebuilt. The fields lie fallow because there are no farmers left to work them. Scanderbeg's alliance is fraying. Some lords have made separate peaces with the Ottomans. Others have been killed in the fighting. The unity forged at Lezhë is crumbling, and Scanderbeg himself is aging. He is nearly 60 now, ancient by medieval standards. He has been fighting for a quarter century. The body that once led cavalry charges with the fury of Alexander is breaking down. The final years are brutal. 1467, 1468. Ottoman armies come again and again. Scanderbeg defeats them, but each victory costs more. His best commanders are dead. His treasury is empty. His allies are abandoning him. In late 1467, he travels to Rome one last time, seeking help from Pope Paul II. The Pope receives him with honor. There are grand ceremonies, empty promises, sincere admiration, but no troops, no money, no real help. Scanderbeg returns to Albania empty-handed. January 17th, 1468, the city of Lezhë. Scanderbeg dies. Not in battle, though he surely expected to die that way. He dies of fever, malaria probably contracted in the swamps of the coastal lowlands. He is approximately 63 years old. He has spent the last 25 years of his life in constant warfare against the most powerful empire on earth. He never lost a battle. His tomb is placed in the Cathedral of Lezhë. It will not remain there long. Within a decade of his death, the Ottomans will finally conquer Albania. They will dig up Scanderbeg's bones, turn them into amulets, and wear them into battle, believing that the spirit of the unconquerable warrior might bring them luck. Even in death, they fear him. Even in victory, they cannot forget him. Without Scanderbeg, Albania collapses. His son, Gjergj, is a child, perhaps 10 years old. There is no one with Scanderbeg's genius, Scanderbeg's prestige, Scanderbeg's ability to hold the alliance together. The League of Lezhë dissolves. Lords make separate deals with the Ottomans. Some flee to Italy, to Venice, to anywhere that will take them. Krujë holds out for a few more years, but it is hopeless. In 1478, the fortress finally falls to Ottoman siege. The resistance is over. Albania will remain under Ottoman rule for over 400 years, until 1912, when the empire itself is dying. The Albanian diaspora begins. Thousands flee to Italy, to Greece, to anywhere Christians will accept them. They bring their language, their customs, their memories of freedom. They found communities that endure to this day. Gjergj Kastrioti, Skanderbeg's widow, takes her son Gjergj to Naples, where they live under the protection of the Aragonese king. Gjergj grows up in exile, a prince without a throne, the heir to a kingdom that no longer exists. His descendants will scatter across Europe. Some will serve as soldiers in foreign armies. Some will marry into noble families. Some will simply disappear into the mass of history's forgotten refugees. The dream of Albanian freedom becomes a memory, then a legend, then something whispered in secret under Ottoman rule. But it never quite dies. 500 years later, Scanderbeg's face is on the Albanian flag. His image dominates the central square of Tirana, the capital. Streets, schools, and institutions bear his name. Every Albanian child learns his story, the stolen boy who became the empire's weapon, then became its nightmare. But what does his story actually mean? He won 23 battles. He held off the Ottoman Empire for 25 years. He died undefeated. And within a decade, everything he fought for was conquered. Albania fell. His people spent 4 centuries under Ottoman rule. Was it worth it? This is the question that haunts every resistance movement in history. Scanderbeg could not save Albania. He did not have the resources, the allies, or ultimately the time. The Ottoman Empire was too large, too powerful, too relentless. Eventually, it would win. He must have known this. He was a strategist, trained in Ottoman military thinking. He could do the mathematics. He could see the inevitable. And he fought anyway. For 25 years, through 23 battles, against impossible odds. Why? Perhaps he fought because the alternative was unacceptable. To submit meant giving up everything: faith, identity, freedom, the right to determine your own fate. To submit meant watching your children taken, your culture erased, your people reduced to servants. Scanderbeg had lived that alternative. He had been taken as a child, converted, trained to serve the empire that conquered his people. He knew exactly what submission meant, and he chose war. Not because he could win, but because some things cannot be surrendered without losing something essential about who you are. There is a concept in Albanian culture called besa, a sacred oath, an unbreakable promise. Once given, Besa cannot be betrayed, no matter the cost. Scanderbeg's entire rebellion was an act of Besa, a promise to his people, to his faith, to the memory of his father, to the mountains that raised him. He kept that promise for 25 years. He kept it until his body failed him. And in keeping it, he gave his people something that the Ottomans could never conquer, the knowledge that resistance was possible. Scanderbeg's legend did not die with Ottoman conquest. In the centuries that followed, Albanian rebels invoked his name. They told stories of the warrior who humiliated the Turks. They sang songs about 23 victories. They kept his memory alive as a promise that freedom might come again. When Albania finally won independence in 1912, as the Ottoman Empire collapsed in the Balkan Wars, Scanderbeg became the symbol of the new nation. His double-headed eagle became the national flag. His legacy became the founding myth. But his influence extends beyond Albania. Scanderbeg's campaigns were studied by military theorists across Europe. His guerrilla, tactics, mobility, terrain exploitation, supply interdiction became models for resistance movements that would not take shape for centuries. His story proved something that empires prefer to forget: that size is not destiny, that a sufficiently determined people, fighting on their own terrain for their own survival, can bleed even the mightiest power until it decides the cost is too high. The Ottoman Empire survived Scanderbeg, but it never forgot him. For 2 centuries after his death, Ottoman writers and historians could not mention Albania without invoking his ghost. He became a cautionary tale, the example of what happens when you underestimate a conquered people, when you take their children and turn them into weapons, when you assume that power alone guarantees loyalty. He became proof that the empire was not invincible, and that proof mattered. In the 15th century, the Ottoman Empire seemed unstoppable. It had crushed every enemy. It was spreading through Europe, through the Middle East, through Africa. Many believed that it was destiny, that the crescent would eventually fly over Rome, over Vienna, over all of Christendom. Scanderbeg proved otherwise. One man, a few thousand fighters, 25 years. If Albania could resist, others could too. Today, Scanderbeg's helmet sits in a museum in Vienna. It is a strange object. Bronze decorated with a goat's head and horns, distinctive and immediately recognizable. It has become the symbol of a man who has become the symbol of a nation. Tourists photograph it. Scholars debate its authenticity. Albanians abroad make pilgrimages to see it. But the helmet is not Scanderbeg. Scanderbeg was a man, brilliant and ruthless, pious and pragmatic, capable of great courage and great violence. He fought a war that killed tens of thousands of people, Ottoman and Albanian alike. He made alliances and broke them. He used terror as a weapon. He was not a saint. He was human, and that is what makes his story meaningful. The question his life poses is not, how do we glorify war, or how do we worship heroes? The question is simpler and harder. What would you fight for? What would you die for? What matters so much that 25 years of war, 23 battles, the death of everything you love, would be worth it? Scanderbeg had an answer. His answer was Albania, his people, his faith, his mountains, his identity. He gave his life to something larger than himself. That answer cost him everything: his youth stolen, his family dead, his body broken, his cause ultimately defeated. And he never stopped. There is something in the human spirit that refuses to submit, something that looks at impossible odds, at overwhelming power, at certain defeat, and chooses to fight anyway. Not because victory is guaranteed, not because the mathematics work out, not because there is any rational reason to believe you can win, but because some things cannot be surrendered without losing yourself. Scanderbeg understood this. The 900 Greeks at Arcadi understood this. The defenders at Thermopylae, at Masada, at the Warsaw Ghetto, They all understood this. Freedom is not a guarantee. It is a choice, made again and again, sometimes at terrible cost. Scanderbeg made that choice for 25 years, 23 battles, 23 victories, 0 defeats. And then he died, and his country fell, and everything he fought for was lost. Except it wasn't. Because we remember. Because his name still echoes. Because 500 years later, his double-headed eagle still flies over Albania. Some defeats are victories, some losses are wins, some deaths are immortality. Scanderbeg won the only battle that ultimately matters. The battle against being forgotten. 23 battles. 23 victories. One man. One legend. Forever. If you appreciated this story, if you believe that history's forgotten rebels and impossible warriors deserve to be remembered, please support this channel. Like, subscribe, share with someone who needs to hear what the past has to teach us. The past is not nostalgia. It is a battle, and some battles never end.